I've been in love with my best friend for 4 years. Never acted on it. Never even hinted at it. Just swallowed it down and played my role. Loyal, goofy, always there, best friend. And for 4 years, I convinced myself that was enough. Until our graduation trip. It was supposed to be a celebration. One last hurrah before college officially spat us out into the world. Just me and Dylan. Two best friends, a road trip, no plans, and an Airbnb we found on a last-minute deal near the coast. We packed light, played music way too loud, and laughed like we were still 17. But I wasn't 17 anymore, and things didn't feel like they used to. Dylan had always been the golden boy, broad-shouldered, sunny smile, the kind of guy who got attention without trying. Girls loved him. Guys wanted to be him. And I just tried not to stare too long when he took off his shirt after a hike, or when he'd sleep shirtless on top of the covers because AC's for the weak, man. I never thought anything would happen. Dylan was straight. End of story. But sometimes the end of the story isn't where you thought it would be. It started small, like it always does. The first night, we were both too tired to unpack properly. Dylan crashed on the couch in a loose tank top and shorts, one leg thrown over the armrest like a damn Calvin Klein ad. I pretended to watch some movie while my eyes kept drifting toward the curve of his neck, the way his chest rose and fell with each breath. He caught me looking once. Didn't say anything, just smirked like he knew something I didn't. The next day, we hit the beach early. He dragged me into the freezing water, laughing when I shrieked like a kid. We played like we always had. Shoulders bumping, teasing each other, wrestling in the surf like idiots. But then there was this moment. I don't know how else to describe it. He grabbed me from behind, tried to dunk me, and for a second his arms wrapped around me in a way that didn't feel like joking. His chest pressed against my back. His breath was close to my ear. And when I twisted around to laugh it off, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Confusion. Maybe curiosity. That night, we drank. Not too much, just enough to loosen whatever walls we both had. We sat on the porch, legs stretched out, sharing a blanket because the breeze off the water had turned cold. "You ever think about the future?" Dylan asked, voice a little slurred, gaze locked on the dark horizon. "Yeah," I said, kinda hard not to. "What if we never find anyone like this again?" "Like what?" He glanced at me. "This. Us." I laughed awkwardly. "You mean two grown-ass men sharing a blanket and a rental like a married couple?" He didn't laugh. Instead, he said, "I'm serious." That shut me up. I turned to face him, but he didn't look away. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes, they were intense. Focused, like he was trying to figure something out in real time. "You ever think about guys?" he asked suddenly. I felt my stomach flip. "What?" "You heard me." The blanket suddenly felt too warm, the air too tight. I forced a shrug, trying to play it cool. "Sure, yeah." Dylan nodded slowly, like he expected that. "Yeah," he said again, like he was testing the word out loud. "I've been thinking about that lately." My heart stopped. He leaned back, eyes closed, a muscle twitching in his jaw, like, I don't know, just wondering what it'd be like. I didn't say anything. I didn't move. I just watched him, frozen, every thought in my head screaming that this couldn't be happening. But then he turned to me, and he said the one thing that undid all the years I'd spent pretending I was okay with being just friends. "What would you do if I kissed you right now?" I should have said something cool, smooth, witty even. But I just sat there, blinking like a fish, heart beating so loud I was sure he could hear it over the sound of the waves. "What?" I finally croaked out, like a total idiot. Dylan didn't flinch, didn't laugh. He just looked at me with this calm, unreadable expression, like he'd already made up his mind about something and was just waiting for me to catch up. I asked. He said slowly, "What you do if I kissed you right now?" I stared at him. At his face in the dim porch light, the way his jaw tensed ever so slightly, the way his lips were slightly parted like he was holding his breath, like he wanted me to give him permission. I don't know, I said, voice barely above a whisper. You don't know? I swallowed. No one's ever asked me that before. He smiled a little, not mocking, soft, thoughtful. Well, he said, sitting up straighter, now someone has. The silence between us stretched so long, I thought it might break. I tried to read him, tried to see if this was some kind of joke, some drunken dare, some weird experiment, but Dylan wasn't drunk. Not really, and this didn't feel like a joke. It felt like something else. You're straight, I said finally, because it was the only thing I could hold on to that made sense. He raised an eyebrow. Am I? I blinked. I don't know what I am, he admitted, but I know I've thought about this. About you. More than once, and not just lately. I felt like the world had tilted under me. Dylan leaned in, elbows on his knees, looking out at the ocean. I always figured I'd settle down with some girl, do the normal thing, but every time something went bad, every time I had a shitty day, every time I really needed someone, it was always you I wanted to talk to, not them. He paused, then turned to face me again. And that's gotta mean something, right? I opened my mouth, closed it, then opened it again. You sure you're not just confused because it's graduation and everything's changing and you don't want to lose our friendship? He gave a short laugh. Dude, I've been confused since sophomore year. That didn't stop me from dating girls, didn't stop me from being your best friend. But this isn't just confusion. I looked at him, really looked at him, the guy who sat through every single one of my panic attacks during finals week, who once drove 3 hours just to bring me soup when I got food poisoning at school. The guy who knew all my bad habits and still chose to stick around. Then kiss me, I said before I could overthink it. He froze for half a second, then he moved. It wasn't some epic movie kiss. It was cautious, hesitant. His lips brushed mine like he was asking a question, not giving an answer, but it was real. And when I didn't pull away, he kissed me again. Deeper this time, his hand cupping the back of my neck, the blanket sliding off our shoulders and pooling in our laps. When we pulled back, we were both breathing hard, eyes locked. Well, he said, a little breathless, that answered that. I laughed, stunned. Yeah, that answered a lot of things. And then we just sat there, the ocean humming in the background, the night pressing in around us. No words, no explanations, just the quiet truth that everything had changed. We didn't talk about the kiss the next morning. Not because we were pretending it didn't happen, but because we both knew if we talked about it too soon, we might mess it up. It was like standing on a frozen lake, knowing every word could crack the surface. So we eased into the day, like we always did. Made coffee, argued about breakfast. He stole half my eggs, I stole half his toast. We acted like two guys on vacation, not two guys who'd kissed the night before. But something was different. The space between us felt charged now. Like every brush of his arm, every shared glance meant something it hadn't before. Or maybe it had always meant something, and we were just finally admitting it. After breakfast, Dylan suggested we go hiking. I found a trail online, he said, showing me his phone. Looks chill. Good views. You just want an excuse to take your shirt off, I joked. He smirked. Maybe. The trail was steeper than he made it sound. I spent the first 30 minutes cursing him under my breath while he powered ahead, turning back every few steps to grin at me like a damn golden retriever. Come on, slowpoke, he called. You're lucky you're hot, I muttered. What was that? Nothing. Eventually, we reached the top, a rocky overlook with a view of the entire coastline. The sun had started dipping low, casting everything in warm orange light. Dylan plopped down on a boulder, breathing hard. Worth it, he said, stretching his arms behind his head. I nodded, trying not to stare. Yeah, definitely. We sat in silence for a while, letting the wind cool our sweat and the view settle in. Then, quietly, he said, "I meant what I said last night." I looked over. His expression was serious now. No smirk, no teasing. "I know you probably think I was just caught up in the moment, or drunk, or scared about the future, or whatever. But I wasn't. I'm not." He looked at me, and I swear everything stopped for a second. "I've wanted to kiss you for a long time," he said. "I just didn't know how to deal with it. You were the one thing I couldn't afford to screw up." I felt my throat tighten. "You didn't screw anything up." He gave a small, relieved laugh. "Good. Because I was kind of hoping you'd kiss me again." I didn't even hesitate. I leaned in, kissed him like I'd been waiting to do it my whole life. This one wasn't cautious. This one said, "I see you." This one said, "I'm not afraid anymore." And when we pulled apart, his hand stayed on my knee, his thumb brushing gently back and forth. Like he needed to keep touching me just to make sure it was real. "So what now?" I asked. He shrugged. "We finish our trip, we go home, we figure it out." "That easy?" He smiled. "Nothing about this has ever been easy. But it's always felt right. That's gotta count for something." I nodded, leaning into his shoulder. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the trail. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was pretending. I felt seen, I felt wanted. And maybe, just maybe, I was finally ready to stop running from it. That night, back at the Airbnb, the mood was different. Not awkward, not forced, just quiet, calm, like we'd both said what we needed to say on that overlook. And now the silence between us felt like safety instead of tension. Dylan grabbed beers from the fridge, handed me one without a word, then sat on the couch, patting the cushion next to him. I joined him, and we sat side by side in the soft glow of the TV, playing some mindless comedy neither of us were really watching. At one point, I felt his fingers brush mine. He didn't grab my hand. He didn't force anything. Just a light, slow movement, back and forth, like he was trying to memorize the shape of my skin. And when I finally threaded my fingers through his, he let out a breath like he'd been holding it for hours. "Is this weird for you?" I asked, keeping my eyes on the screen. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Yeah." I looked over, he was smirking. "But like in a good way." I laughed. "What does that even mean?" "I don't know," he said, squeezing my hand gently. I've spent so long thinking this wasn't possible, that I couldn't feel this way. About you, about any guy, really." He shifted on the couch to face me more. "But now that I'm here, now that it's you, it doesn't feel wrong. It doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels kind of like I've been walking around with my eyes closed for a really long time." I swallowed hard, heart thudding in my chest. He looked down at our hands, then back up at me. "You ever feel like the world expects you to be someone, and you've just been pretending to be that person for so long you forgot who you actually are?" I nodded slowly. "Every day." His thumb stroked the back of my hand again. "I'm tired of pretending." "Me too." We didn't kiss again that night. We didn't do anything, really. We just sat there, fingers laced, the TV quietly droning on while the rest of the world faded into the background. Eventually, he yawned, stretched, and said, "I'm gonna crash." "Yeah," I said, suddenly unsure what to do. "Me too." He stood, then paused halfway to his room. "You want to sleep in my room tonight?" I looked at him. Not with expectation, not with pressure, just hope, maybe even a little fear. "I mean, just sleep," he added quickly. "It's cold." And I stood up before he could finish. "Yeah," I said, voice quiet. "I'd like that." He pulled back the covers and slid into one side of the bed. I joined him, the mattress dipping slightly under our combined weight. For a minute, we lay there stiff and awkward, both on our backs, staring at the ceiling. Then I felt his arm shift. Slowly, carefully, he reached across the space and rested it lightly over my stomach. "Is this okay?" he asked. I turned slightly toward him, my face inches from his. "It's more than okay." And with that, he pulled me close, my back against his chest, our bodies fitting together like they'd always known how to. We didn't talk, we didn't kiss. He just held me. And I fell asleep like that, for the first time in years, with someone's arms around me, who I wanted to be there. Waking up next to him felt like stepping into someone else's life. The morning light was soft, spilling through the cracks in the blinds, casting a warm glow across the room. I blinked slowly, still wrapped in his arm, my head tucked under his chin. For a second, I forgot where I was. Then I remembered everything. The kiss, the talk, his hand in mine, his breath on my neck as I drifted off. And now, his body pressed against mine like it belonged there. I didn't move, didn't want to, but Dylan did. I felt his chest rise with a deeper breath, then the slow shift of his arm tightening slightly around my waist. When he spoke, his voice was raspy, low. "You awake?" "Yeah," I said, voice still thick with sleep. He didn't say anything right away, just stayed quiet like he was trying to figure out if this "we" was real. Then he whispered, "Good." We stayed like that for a few more minutes, tangled up in the stillness. I could feel his heartbeat against my back, steady and slow. Finally, he pulled back slightly. I rolled over to face him. His hair was a mess, his eyes soft and a little puffy from sleep, but he looked at me with this quiet intensity, like I was something important. "I don't want to go back to how things were," he said. "You won't have to," I replied, and meant it. He smiled. Not his usual smirk, the real one, the kind that rarely showed up unless he was caught off guard. "I don't know how to be this," he admitted. "I've never done anything like this before. Never even kissed a guy until you." "I've done this before," I said gently. "So we go slow. Figure it out together. You're okay with that?" "Yeah," I said. "I'm just glad you're here." He reached for my hand again and laced our fingers together like it was already second nature. Then, after a beat, he leaned forward and kissed me, slow and warm and sure. "I feel like I'm late to something everyone else figured out already," he murmured. "No," I said. "You're right on time." The rest of the day felt surreal. We made breakfast like a couple, took turns playing DJ while we cleaned up. He brushed up against me on purpose. I smacked his ass with a dish towel. He threw an orange slice at me. It was all so normal. And that's what made it wild. Later, we went back to the beach. Dylan brought a blanket, a speaker, 2 drinks. We lay there under the sun, barely talking, just existing. At one point, I sat up to take a sip from my can and he leaned over, brushing his shoulder against mine. "You're gonna have to deal with me being a clingy asshole now, right?" he said. I grinned. "Can't wait." He laughed, then grew quiet. "I don't know what this means for everything else," he said. "Like, what do we tell people? Our friends? My parents?" I looked at him, saw the flicker of nerves behind the cool exterior, the fear he was trying to hide. "You don't have to figure it all out right now," I said. "We don't owe anyone an explanation until you're ready." He nodded, chewing on his lip. Then, quieter, "I just don't want to lose this." "You won't." He looked at me then, eyes full of something I hadn't seen before. Something real. Something like love. We spent the last 2 days of the trip orbiting each other like gravity had shifted and finally pulled us in. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some endless string of steamy moments. It was smaller things. The way he stood a little closer when we brushed our teeth. The way his hand found mine under the table at lunch. The way we didn't stop touching, even when we weren't talking. Something had cracked open in Dylan, and I could feel him trying to make sense of it in real time. Sometimes he'd zone out mid-conversation, eyes distant. I could tell he was thinking, processing, probably overanalyzing every feeling. every reaction, but he never pulled away. Not once. The morning we packed up to leave, I found him sitting outside on the porch again, looking out at the waves. "You ready?" I asked, slinging my backpack over one shoulder. He looked up at me and nodded, then paused. "I don't want to lose this when we get home," he said. "You won't." "I'm serious. So am I." He set his coffee down, stood up, and walked over until we were chest to chest. His hand came up to rest lightly on my jaw. What if I freak out? What if I say something stupid? Or mess this up? "Then we talk," I said. "You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to stay honest." He exhaled through his nose, nodding slowly. Then, quieter. "You're really okay with being the first for me?" I gave him a small smile. "You're not the first guy I've wanted, but you are the first one who wanted me back." That made him pause, visibly affected. He kissed me then, soft and unhurried. Right there in the morning light, our suitcases still sitting on the porch behind us. Back in the car, the drive home was quiet at first. I assumed he needed space, maybe was already mentally retreating. But then, about an hour in, he reached over and set his hand on my thigh. Not possessively, just there. "I've been thinking," he said, eyes on the road. "Maybe I don't need to figure out a label right now. Maybe I just need to admit I like you." I looked over. "That works for me." He smiled. "And maybe we keep this just between us for a bit?" "Not because I'm ashamed," he added quickly. "I'm not. I just want to be sure about what this is before people start asking questions." "Then we take our time," I said. "No pressure." "Cool," he said, squeezing my leg. "But just so you know, I'm still gonna hold your hand when I feel like it." I grinned. "You better." That night, when we got back to his place, we unloaded the car, ordered pizza, and collapsed on the couch like we had after a dozen other trips before this one. Except this time, when I leaned into his side, he wrapped his arm around me like it was the most natural thing in the world. And it was. Over the next few weeks, life tried its best to return to normal, but we didn't let it. We didn't announce anything. No Instagram posts, no awkward friend group confessions. We weren't hiding, but we weren't exactly on display either. It was ours. Quiet, private, and somehow more sacred because of it. Dylan started coming over more. At first, it was under the usual excuse. Movie night, gaming, helping me move some stuff, but he'd stay later, linger longer, find reasons to touch me in small ways. A hand on my neck when he walked behind me, fingers trailing down my back when he leaned over to look at my screen. Stuff that felt domestic, intimate. One night we were on my couch again. He had his head in my lap, absently scrolling through his phone while I played with his hair. He suddenly said, "You know Marcus and Jared are gonna notice something soon, right? I mean, if they haven't already." He looked up at me. "You think they'd care?" I shrugged. "Not the important ones." He nodded, thoughtful. "Okay, then I think I'm ready." "Ready?" He sat up, shifting to face me, his knees folded under him. "To stop pretending. I mean, maybe I'm not ready to shout it from the rooftops yet, but I don't want to keep acting like you're just my roommate or some friend I go on long-ass trips with and cuddle in bed after." I snorted. "Very platonic of you." He grinned. "Seriously, I want to figure this out with you, actually be with you." I didn't say anything right away. Just let it sink in. That this, whatever this was, wasn't some fleeting thing for him. He meant it. "Okay," I said quietly. "Let's be with each other." He leaned in, kissed me again, this time deeper, more sure of himself, and when he pulled back, he looked lighter, like he'd set something down he'd been carrying too long. Then he whispered, "So, I guess I'm your boyfriend now?" I smiled. "Guess so." We took our time with everything. Our first time sleeping together, not just sharing a bed, but actually sleeping together, happened a week later. No pressure, no expectations. Just soft touches, nervous laughs, and slow exploration. He was gentle, open, vulnerable in a way I never expected from someone who used to be so guarded. "I don't know what I'm doing," he whispered at one point, his forehead pressed to mine. "You don't have to," I whispered back. "Just feel it." And he did. That night, after everything, he fell asleep with his arm draped over my chest and his fingers loosely curled against my collarbone. I watched him breathe in and out and thought to myself, this is really happening. It's been 3 months since that trip, 3 months since Dylan kissed me for the first time. 3 months since we stopped pretending and let whatever had always existed between us finally breathe. You'd think the world would have imploded when we told people. It didn't. Our friend Marcus took one look at us, holding hands in the back of the bar, and said, "Finally." Jared owed someone $50 from a bet. Even Dylan's sister, who'd always joked we were like a married couple, just rolled her eyes and said, "Took you long enough." But Dylan's parents, that was a harder step. He stressed over it for days, paced his apartment, rehearsed conversations, backed out 3 separate times. Then, one Saturday morning, we just went over there. He didn't say much. He didn't make some dramatic speech. He just sat across from his parents at the kitchen table and said, "This is my boyfriend," and waited. There was silence. His mom blinked, then smiled softly. His dad sat back in his chair, expression unreadable. For a second, I thought Dylan might crack, might run. But then his dad said, "So, you're happy?" Dylan nodded. "Yeah, I really am." His dad reached over and clapped him on the shoulder. "Good, that's all I care about." I saw Dylan exhale like someone had just cut off the weight he'd been dragging behind him his whole life. Now, things are simple. He leaves a toothbrush at my place. I keep oat milk in the fridge for his dumb protein shakes. He texts me, "You up?" at 2 a.m., even though we've been sharing a bed for the past week. We fight sometimes about dumb things. Dishes. Schedules. My refusal to watch any movie longer than 2 hours. But then he'll grab my face, kiss me stupid, and all that noise just disappears. He's still figuring himself out. Still not great with words. But he shows me how he feels in every little way, when he pulls me close in the middle of the night, when he holds my hand under the table in crowded restaurants, when he mouths, "Thank you," after family dinners where he's no longer hiding. And sometimes, when we're lying in bed and he thinks I'm asleep, he'll whisper things. I didn't know I could feel this. I think I loved you before I even knew what it meant. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. I never say anything back when he does. I just hold him tighter. Because I feel it too. And for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid to.